There will be no introduction to this podcast today, because what else can we say? The Queen, our monarch for the past 70 years, has passed away.
Yes.
I mean, I came downstairs just as we were about to have dinner, and then we all saw the screen cut to black, and in that moment, we knew things were going to be going badly.
Yeah. It's worse on my end as well, because my neighbours were banging all the time, and that was fun.
Oh.
And
Well.
we hear all it.
But, sheesh, it's such a shock. The Queen is gone.
Mhm.
Money is going to have to be reprinted.
That's gonna be
I
weird.
don't think that will happen. I personally think they'll keep it the same because it will be a tribute to her to keep her on the money, and also because they're probably lazy.
Well,
If American dollars can keep all of the past presidents on them, I think we can keep our Queen on our notes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't see them reprinting money. They might do. I don't know. But
that's a possible change, but one definite change we're all going to have to get used to is we're now going to have to get used to singing God Save the King, as Charles has now taken up the mantle of king.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel the same.
No, it's different.
Yeah.
I think this is a fitting time to bring up again, if I didn't already, that I shook hands with Prince Charles when I was 6.
Whoa.
Yes. I had my name drawn out of a hat in school, and then we went with one of a random 2 friends to an event. I don't know what event it was, but he had arrived in a helicopter, and then he was shaking everyone's hand. So I was like, oh. Like, it wasn't like me personally, it was like a crowd, but still. You know.
So you've technically shook hands with the king.
Yes.
In a way.
Well, so yeah, it's still quite a shock. We're all still getting used to it. Just today, as of this recording, we witnessed the funeral and we're still coming to grips with it. So we send our condolences to the royal family, so rest in peace. So, how's everyone been since the last podcast?
All good. I recently started a new college, so that's fun.
Cool.
But since the last time we had a podcast, I had Michael and Ali visiting mine for the week.
Oh yeah, what was all that about?
Yeah.
Sneaky behind the scenes visits.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely saw that. Like, Michael stealing the snake staff and Ali abducting sour powder. Like, is this gonna be brought up in the next chapter?
Well, maybe they start chasing them more, maybe, but I don't know about the others.
Like, this is how the world sees snake staff now after the events of chapter 6 or 7.
It's been robbed by Michael. I guess I could have a nightmare scene or something. It was the second time I've met Ali in person, and the first time I'd met Michael in person.
Yeah.
So I've officially met everybody here in person.
Yeah.
Yes.
I still need to meet everyone else, but, hopefully in the future.
So, Rowan, has there been much change on your side of things?
Absolutely. I've started full-time work.
Nice.
Oh.
Yep, I am now a helpline advisor for a particular company. I won't say which for privacy purposes, but it's full-time work, and now my hours of free time are significantly shorter.
So I guess now, Agretzko now is fully relatable to you now.
Oh, yes.
I was listening back to one of our podcasts a couple of months ago, and I think I have to ask, is it a better help phone answering job than that time where someone just wouldn't accept your answer, that Karen story a while ago.
Well, luckily thus far I've been with mostly reasonable people, and the only ones that were particularly long were not necessarily angry, they just had some very specific needs that I was trying my best to meet. So, let's just say the things I have to do are primarily giving information and arranging appointments. We'll put it that way.
All right.
Good luck.
Yep.
Well, as for me, not much has been going on because college took a lot out of me this year, and now I've been taking it easy. I've had my eyes on a certain establishment for employment, but, well, we'll just have to wait and see how that goes.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, as for recent events, obviously, we all know what's happening with the Queen, but one incident I do want to bring up was, now, as we all know, people were lining the streets to see her off, and it's all very emotional and such, but there are two types of people in the world, which I'm going to bring up. Now, during one stretch of the Queen's journey around London one last time, there was one section of London that was lined with cannons ready to see her off. Firing off the cannons. It's how you send someone of significance off in some places. Now, there are two types of people in the world. One was one woman who I saw in the crowd who was standing behind everyone else wearing sound-cancelling earmuffs, which, of course, you would do because cannons are loud and you don't want to be too close when they go off.
Yeah.
And then there's the other type of people in the world. And that was the woman in front of her who decided to bring her baby to a cannon fire.
Oh, no.
So that all I can say is it cut away before I could see their reaction, but all I can say is that they probably wouldn't have ended well.
Yeah. No carries.
Thoughts, Dudley?
I personally don't see a problem with it, but I mean, I guess it depends on your child or what you're expecting or whatever, so,
Why bring your baby to any sort of event? If your infant can't support the weight of his own head, he's not going to get anything out of this event.
Exactly.
This is
Never
why
understood that.
This is why it's a bad idea to bring a baby to a cinema. Because even if they cry once, you've ruined the movie for everyone.
Yeah.
So you're going to leave your baby home and then say, oh, we didn't take you there because,
Maybe hire a babysitter, hire someone who doesn't care about all of this, make arrangements. Jeez.
If they can.
Why wasn't I at the funeral, Mum? Oh, I just thought you couldn't handle the cannon. That's a funny image. I don't mean physically handle.
You should be lucky that baby's not deaf. Because if they were close enough, that would have seriously caused hearing loss.
I mean, if you think about it, the music probably would have done that already.
Yeah.
If they were close enough to the front. And then the closer they were to the back, the cannon would have been more of a shock, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I
but
haven't seen an uproar yet.
yeah, but still, you have to think about everyone else. You're not the only one at this event. Because, back to my point about the cinema, we are seeing this movie for the first time in all its glory. And if that moment of glory is ruined, unfortunately, that's how we remember this movie forever. This is why I get so annoyed remembering that woman who ruined our experience of seeing Spider-Man No Way Home. Because that's the first time we're seeing this movie, and now this is how I remember it. Nothing but that woman on her phone.
Well, I mean, I personally find that if it's like a say a family event or an event in a church or something, or a funeral or something like this, babies are excusable. Like, you can't go say, oh, a baby ruined my day seeing the Queen's funeral, unless, like, baby was physically, like, sick on you or something, you know. Like, a baby on a plane I can understand, because you don't want them screeching and yelling all the way through the journey, but it's like, I mean, but then, I don't know, I know it bothers some people over others, so, you know, that's fine.
At least on most planes they give you headphones.
Yeah, I mean, it's also kind of unfair on the kid as well, because it doesn't matter the context, cannons are kind of scary.
Yeah. If it's unfair on anybody, it's the kid. But,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because cannons are, I don't know if obviously they fire blanks, but it's still, like, heavy artillery to some degree. So it's kind of unfair.
Yeah.
But aside from that, it's moments we're all going to remember for a very long time. So, good luck to King Charles and his successors and such. So, yes.
Wonder how that goes.
You're listening to the TBI podcast. So, on to more relatable recent events. Because, sure, the Queen's funeral is, of course, going to be historic moments, but at the same time, Marvel's been dishing out some pretty good content as well, haven't they?
Heard.
Yes.
Well, because cinema's becoming popular again now, a lot of Marvel's shows we've not actually talked about yet, so I think it's finally time we start diving into the Disney Plus exclusives and see how they've been doing. So, the first series that I want to talk about is probably the first series that came out this year, Moon Knight.
Yes, that was a good one. Okay.
I still haven't seen it yet.
How dare you?
Yes, Moon Knight. Marvel's probably the first Egyptian superhero out there.
Ooh.
Yep. So yes, meet Mark Spector. He's a man who has a serious case of split personality disorder. And one of them happens to be a superhero alter ego possessed by the Egyptian god of the moon, Khonshu. And yes, a real Egyptian god.
Yeah.
And this is what I admire, because I love it when Marvel dives into the more mystical and magical side of things. Like, sure, it's nice and it's cool to have a scientific explanation for everything, but at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to admit that magic is always going to be magic. I mean, that's why I love Doctor Strange so much, because it dives into the more mystical side of the MCU, and where everything's not all technology and everything has an answer.
They could have gone.
Uh-oh, Brian, you're fading out of existence.
Oh,
Couldn't hear you there.
Oh, I was going to say that it would have been one thing to have, like, Doctor Strange be a society of telekinetics and telepaths that's just, like, advanced humans like X-Men, but the fact that they went with magic, like ancient magic for it, is just, it's nice to know that they're not so stuck in one niche.
Yeah.
It's another reason why, forgive me for not saying the name right, it's Shang-Chi in the Rings.
Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that movie.
Yeah. It's like the one that introduces dragons, and it's like, okay then. Well, we're doing that.
I really love that movie.
Well, I mean, to be fair, they do explain it that there is another world out there that's entirely based in Chinese mythology, where the lions in Chinese lore do actually look like how they look in statue form. But We'll dive into more detail in that some other time, but right now, let's talk about Moon Knight. Now, once again, Marvel dives into the more mystical side of things, and they actually introduce Egyptian gods, like actual half human, half animal gods. And it's a really refreshing change because some might even say, hey, I remember that god when I was learning about them in school. So it's always nice to see these figures actually come to life.
Yeah, every kid's always had a mythology phase, whether it was Greek mythology or Norse or Egyptian. So that extra layer of nostalgia there.
Didn't you, Michael?
Nope.
No interest in Greek gods, Egyptian gods.
I never learned it in school, so.
Jeez.
See, I never really talk about it, but I've kind of been a fan of Egyptian gods. But that's about as far as it goes. Like, and not ironically, but Anubis was the god of death. And then it's also another reason I really like Lucario, because Lucario is kind of based on Anubis. It's
Yeah.
like, I always kind of liked that. I don't know. Well, that's how I saw it.
So yeah. Speaking of Marvel's recent series, I've figured out the formula. I figured out how to make a Marvel Disney Plus series. So, here's the formula. First of all, you need to have a minimum of at least 6 episodes. Episode 1, you introduce the main characters. This, you introduce what their personality's like and how their actions will impact the rest of the story. Episode 2, the main character's powers are discovered and obtained, and the main villain conflict is revealed. Episode 3. Normally, by the end of this episode, some major battle will have likely have taken place. Episode 4. By the end of episode 4, something outlandishly strange, bizarre, yet incredibly epic is bound to happen at the end of episode 4. Episode 5. The explanation for that event is given, and preparations for the final battle take place. Episode 6, the final episode. Depending on if you want to take this series to another season, or if you want to call it here, if you want to end the season here, you defeat the villain and say how this character will enter the MCU in other media. Or, if you want to extend it to another season, you keep some conflict or villain alive and leave it open for interpretation. And that is what I think is the Marvel TV show formula. How accurate am I?
I would change a couple of things here and there, Daniel, if I was to say. But you do have the majority of it correct. I think a common trend in my experience is first episode, like you say, you get introduced to the new characters. Then I think the villain has to appear at some point. And you've been talking about this, and I think it's a good segue for this. I've been thinking about Miss Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
Been talking about that. But this doesn't spoil Miss Marvel by any means. So first episode, villain turns up. Second episode is about them trying to deal with their powers and trying not to show someone because they're guilty about someone finding out. Third episode probably has a bit of a conflict with the villain somewhere or another. It could be just a simple car chase or something, but no one actually gets hurt. Yeah. Episode 4 is probably like them finding out about what their disaster is going to be or something. Episode 5 is where they end on a big cliffhanger or something. And then a mix of your one. Episode 6 would be them working themselves up to fight it, and then they do try and fight it. And depending on whether they want it to be a new series or not, either they don't resolve the conflict and it extends to the next season, or they do resolve it and then the villain gets defeated, I guess. But,
Yeah. Rowan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate to me. And
Agreed.
Well, of course,
Okay.
Dudley, you brought up Miss Marvel. So how appropriate that we should talk about that next.
Oh dear.
Well, I think I brought up Miss Marvel before, the first Muslim superhero. Now, granted, her powers are a little bit different in the series than her powers in the comics, because, famously, Miss Marvel has the powers of elasticity, or to put it more simply, stretchy powers. But in
it's Elastigirl for the Marvel Universe.
yeah, pretty
I
much.
didn't know that.
However, in the series, they take a more interesting approach. Basically, Miss Marvel wears this bangle that allows her to create crystal constructs. So,
Okay.
technically, she can make super stretchy hands to grab someone from falling, but it'll be made out of crystal. Maybe it's because characters with stretchy powers don't look all that great in live action? I don't know,
Yeah.
but
I think I went into it not knowing anything about Miss Marvel, and I like that I like the effects they do on that, and I also like that she was fangirling over Captain Marvel, which,
Oh, yeah.
which was kind of cool.
yeah,
I think that was a
because-
nice touch.
Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, she is famously depicted as a fanfic writer, so sometimes things get pretty saucy and pretty epic at the same time.
Yeah, it has a very good style. Also, not to bring this back to Pokemon again, but the second you said Crystal, I thought, I can't wait to see the fan art of her with, like, new effect for Scarlet and Violet, you know?
Yeah, terrestrializing.
Yes. Anyway, yeah, back to Marvel, sorry.
So, Rowan?
yeah, that's really something else.
So yeah, while Miss Marvel's powers are a bit different, they still try to keep it mystical. Like, she gets her powers from a dimension where jinns or genies happen to rule, so yeah, there's that.
Magic.
Yay!
Yeah.
The villains, a few people were saying it before I'd even finished watching it, but the villains in it felt a bit weak to me. I don't know, like, it was a bit like it didn't do a lot to keep my interest on the villain side of things.
Yeah,
but
I get
the other
that.
stuff was good.
I mean, in the comics, Miss Marvel's first villain was a villain called the Inventor, who's basically a genetic experiment gone wrong where the DNA of Alexander Graham Bell was mixed up with a cockatiel, creating this hybrid Birdman.
Should
So,
have had him, like, voiced by Jermaine Clement.
what, the same guy who plays Tamatoa from Moana?
Yes, but he's also the cockatiel from Rio. So
Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I just want to say I still haven't seen Hawkeye yet, and it's almost
Really?
been a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
need to see that.
to be
Meanwhile,
fair, Hawkeye is technically considered a Christmas series, so you'll have every
Yeah.
opportunity to see that in December. Now,
and then
for the last and most recent show in Marvel's lineup that's got a lot of people divided and talking, She-Hulk, Attorney at
Yeah.
Law.
I was gonna think about that.
I've seen the first episode.
I'm going which episode I'm on.
I've seen a few disparaging comments myself on that.
You're getting a bit quiet there again, Ryan.
Yeah, I've seen a few disparaging comments myself online.
Yeah,
Well,
I've seen enough things.
and finally, those concerned parents have Hulk wearing a bra. Do you remember that from way back in the podcast?
Yes. That whole shebang.
Yeah. So, Jennifer Walters, the cousin of Bruce Banner, accidentally gets his blood infused with her own. Now she can become a Hulk as well.
She's his cousin.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I'm a little behind on the lore of these things.
Well, I've been watching them as they come out every week, so I'm... Plus, I've had some lore knowledge from previous comics. However, as revolutionary as it is to finally get She-Hulk in live action, a lot of people have been rather divided on this show. Because I've heard one argument say that it's a different style compared to the other shows. Like, She-Hulk actually breaks the fourth wall in this.
Oh.
Which is strange because we expect it from Deadpool, but She-Hulk? Okay.
Apparently he's done it in the past as well. Didn't realize from.
Well, I, for one, am excited to see where the story goes. It's an okay style. I'm willing to see what happens. But let's just say Marvel has been having quite a bit of fun working the characters in that series.
Yeah, pretty much fun.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. One example that's got the internet divided was post-credits scene at the end of one episode where She-Hulk actually ends up twerking.
Ugh.
I mean, Marvel's done worse with She-Hulk. I mean,
Really?
yeah, they've...
Okay.
I mean, they had... I'm not sure what issue this was, but there was one comic where she was completely naked and just jumping with a skipping rope. It was nowhere near as bad as that, but I can understand why people would find it cringy. So, Dudley, what are your thoughts?
Well, I need to see more of the series and rewatch the first episode again. I'm sure the twerking will be fine.
Yeah. Much for yourself for that.
Well, Marvel's had plenty of fun doing similar things with a lot of their male superheroes who have been in the series for a long time. At least give the women a chance to have some fun, surely.
Yes.
I mean, I think they're doing... I don't think they're purposely doing it, but I think they are doing a very good job of, like, you know, we've got Miss Marvel, we've got She-Hulk, we've got, you know, a lot of WandaVision, we've got a lot of stuff going on with, like, diversity and stuff. It's very good.
Yep. Because, as we all know, after the events of Avengers Endgame, a lot of the heroes that we all know and love are slowly training or being replaced by newer versions that hold the rest of the MCU on their backs. Of course, we've got a new Hulk, we've got a new questionable Black Widow, we've got technically 2 Captain Americas. Falcon is apparently going to be taken up by a new guy. Of course, Miss Marvel's joined the fight. And... I
saw something else, actually.
Oh?
Yep.
I don't know if this is real, but I think it is. That, you know, Agatha, the villain from WandaVision.
It's been Agatha all along. Yes.
Yes, apparently she's getting her own show. So
I still need to see WandaVision.
well, it's not a massive spoiler, but you're like, but yes.
Something tells me it's going to take a similar approach to the first few episodes of WandaVision, where she's, you know, we all know she's the villain, but it'll be interesting to see her actually fighting her urges as the nosy neighbor and trying to regain control of her life. I think that's where it's going to go.
I think it'll be more to do with the dark backstory and stuff, like what she was doing and things, but, like, I guess it'll be interesting.
Yep.
Is it? Of course, me and Michael I love Marvel, and it's all well and good. I think Michael can agree with me. Me and him are more hyped for all the Star Wars stuff.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And also, content is coming out recently, so.
Oh yeah, there's a massive list.
Yeah,
Star Wars
it's go
stuff
on.
around.
Yeah.
Disney is going nuts with these releases. They're releasing so much. And
Well,
this
concerned for the workers.
and this is only the beginning. But that'll have to wait for another podcast.
You are listening to the TBI show.
Well, it's that time again for the month's most ridiculous headlines.
Oh, yes!
Okay. In this month's news, a woman has been slammed for calling for adults-only flights after hearing a child cry for the entire trip.
How ironic.
We've gone full circle.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
We actually made it go full circle.
Yeah. Is that the first?
But, sheesh, what are your thoughts on that? Adult-only flights.
Yes, please.
Sounds like Rowan's got something to say about this one.
I never had experience on flights, so I can't say much.
All I can say is now I'm thinking of a kids-only flight.
And how that was.
Be a flight attendant on that.
Oh, that would be a nightmare.
Flight attendant has to be ex-military.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like the kids would just be running around like crazy. They're pushing all the buttons everywhere.
Oh, no.
None of them would
It'd
be
like
able to sit
kindergarten
still.
cop, but for flight attendants.
Yeah.
I've been on a few flights now, and I can't remember if the last one actually had like a kid crying or not. But, like, for some reason, I remember there being one. I'm not sure. Maybe it was a little annoying, but I thought I could imagine like 10 hours would be horrible, you know, or something like that.
yeah.
But I think just have an adult-only flight is a bit extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to the next headline. A snake-loving engineer builds a robot to give his snake its legs back. Oh god, don't get any ideas, snake staff.
I knew you were like that.
So yeah, you heard that right. An engineer has built a robot to give his snake a pair of legs, and it actually works.
Science! It works.
Yeah.
Science being used for the right things.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, a snake can technically move faster with this thing, and it's willing to just ride around in it.
Just like make it chase somebody, you know, people can finally say a snake chased them. Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's a lot of like misconceptions about snakes, like people think snakes are slimy and that snakes chase them and stuff, like unless it's a man-eating snake, like so I always found it amazing that snakes are perfectly designed without legs.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they can swim, and they kind of move. Their bodies they make them. Well, some of them move like caterpillars. That's how they move along and stuff, like the way their bodies move and stuff. Anyway, I could talk about snakes all day.
Yeah.
Oh, you totally could snake snap magic, couldn't you?
Well,
Oh, no.
no. How appropriate. This next headline is Disney related.
Oh, wow.
So, Disney is in talks with the BBC to stream the new era of Doctor Who on Disney Plus exclusively.
Oh, they really are stealing every IP they can get their hands on.
Oh my god!
Oh, that even worse.
Oh my god!
I mean,
Ah,
Doctor Who with a Disney budget, that would be interesting.
Oh,
maybe that's what something Dave had planned all along.
Well,
is Disney gonna buy BBC?
I don't know, but the talks.
And then one continue moving again.
It's in early stages right now, but I mean, the future of Doctor Who is up in the air because now, with the Doctor close to regeneration, we know what his next regeneration's going to look like. So, Jodie Whittaker's had an interesting run, but now, for the first time, the Doctor's going to be played by a black man.
Yes.
Yes.
And also, an old doctor is returning as well. So, yeah.
And, as you would expect, once again, people are complaining that the Doctor should be a boring old white man. Shame on you.
I don't give it a second thought.
I mean, we've talked about this before with Jodie Whittaker becoming the Doctor.
Mm.
And I say again, oh really? You think an alien being who has the power to change his face and personality when he's on the brink of death is considered impossible to look just a little bit different? Really?
Yeah.
We've seen Time Lords regenerate from white men to black women. It happens. They can...
Yeah.
The only reason that happens... Let's think about this. The Doctor likes becoming human because he favours the human race. All Time Lords have the ability to regenerate into completely different species. You should be lucky the Doctor's not a xenomorph.
They
To
don't,
say that, like, I'm surprised he hasn't gone full alien at any point.
they don't turn into different species. Just doesn't.
What happened with the Master? Why did he look all skeletal during the 50s?
Because he got like. There was a.
It was his last regeneration.
You have to watch the episode!
Dang it, you've got me there.
It was his last regeneration, so he was in his shiny form.
I think that means the old master when he looked like a burnt potato chip.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, but when the Master regenerated into a woman, people didn't bat an eye. When he became an Indian man, nobody batted an eye, I hope. So why is it that the Doctor becoming slightly different is suddenly a big issue?
I guess it's because it's the main character.
My friend James was talking about this. Like he'd be like, the thing about the Doctor is when a Time Lord regenerates, they can change every cell in their body. The argument can be made that if that's the case, then there's no reason they shouldn't become female.
Mm-hmm.
It's only the current series. I mean, naturally so, but it's only the current series that's addressed that. So it's like they were testing the waters with the Master before they finally had the Doctor turn.
Mm-hmm.
People are funny about it, and it just doesn't faze me. I say this with everything. By addressing the problem, you're drawing attention to the problem. And if people didn't go on about saying, it's something to be commended, but if you say stuff like, oh, the new Doctor is being played by a black man for the first time, then that draws attention to it. So if you didn't go around shouting about it, then people wouldn't, it'd be less like, yeah.
But those are always going to be hater problems. I'm looking forward to this new Black Doctor. He looks cool. He's bringing the multicolored outfits back.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well,
I'm looking forward to it.
I've got to say, Michael, if Disney did direct Doctor Who episodes,
I'm sure.
Oh no, you have to think about it, right? Think how good Rogue One was.
Yeah.
That's Rogue One, but a Dalek story without the Doctor in it. Like, that would be cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
well, let's press on.
There aren't any songs in it, Michael. Don't worry.
Let's press on with a new headline, shall we?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Here's a new headline for you. Thailand could soon introduce chemical castration in return for a reduced prison sentence. So, think about this. In Thailand, this could very well become a reality. So you can either stay in prison for your maximum amount of years, or you can be let out early, but if you do that, you're never having kids. It's like that old Rowan Atkinson sketch. Male adulterers, if you could just form a line in front of that small guillotine in the corner there, that would be grand.
This is just something I've heard. Now, don't hold anything against me for this. This is just what I've heard, so I'm going off of my knowledge. In China, they favour to have a son, right? Rather than, or they used to at least. I'm not entirely sure the process behind it. So we're going on to that subject again. Let's say you've had your child, and then you go to prison. Can't you just be like, oh, well, I've had my kid, so yeah, I'll take the castration. I don't get punished for anything anymore.
Well, repeat offenders do happen when they've been let out of prison, so this is just a countermeasure, I guess, to stop them from doing it again.
Castrated twice. So the second time is like, if you get, your son will get castrated.
Sheesh. Ugh.
I'm sorry.
Well, I can see that working in some places. You got to set an example for people who don't care. So,
Yes.
Ryan, thoughts?
It is something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I really do not have any words for that.
Yeah.
Well,
Can't be that can be true.
well, those are the month's headlines. However, just before we end today's podcast off, sheesh, we've been away for 2 months, and finally, a huge lot of information has been released about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Well,
I sound so excited.
a whole bunch of new Pokemon have been released to the masses. One of them being Narwhal, that is us a Titan.
Pensioners discount for whoever knows that.
Yes, they released an ice-type land whale that has a frozen horn. It can only be a Narwhal.
Mm-hmm. About time.
Yeah?
I'm still waiting. I need to see all of the Pokemon before I can decide on a favourite. I don't think and it's ironic, and I'm not just saying this because you thought about it in a bad way, but Eye looks good.
Yes. The infamous spray painting lemur Pokemon that has been leaked at in previous posts, which I won't disclose information on. Yes. We finally have ourselves, technically, a lemur Pokemon. And they chose one of the creepiest ones out there, an Eye. I mean, at the same time, I get it because they took that creepy middle finger they have and made it literally a finger painter.
I like it looks like face looks like a Spider-Man mask sort of thing going on to me, and it kind of looks, I guess, just looks cool. I like the colours.
Yeah. Well, oh yes, we've also got Fido, who's literally a dog made out of baking dough. Yes.
4 reasons for people to try recipes and make Pokemon out of food. That sounds worse for this.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think we're reaching a point we should not be reaching for.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about it earlier, but we finally know what the special theme for battling in this game is: terastallizing. The act of crystallizing a Pokemon, changing their type completely.
Yes. Which, until they explained it, sounded terrifying. But now that it's been confirmed, Pokemon gets turned into the one type.
Yeah.
So if you have a Dark Dragon Hydra God and you use it, then it'll just be a pure water type. So, just for those interested.
Well, as for recent trailers, geesh, I didn't know there was a Mega Man fan working for Pokemon. Because Armorogue or Armorrouge, I forget the name, is definitely a contender from my team.
What about Cloth?
It's definitely unique, but to me, Kingler's always going to be the definitive crab Pokemon for me. But still, this is still only speculation. For me, there are rumors that we could be getting a regional variant of Girafarig. And if what I've heard in leaks is true, for once, I'll be a little disappointed that the regional variant isn't an ice type.
If it was blue, that would be perfect.
Yep. But until then, we're just going to have to keep waiting. Well, we're almost out of time, so anyone want to bring anything up before we bring this to a close?
I do have one thing that I feel like I should mention. I showed, when Michael was at mine, I showed him Hercules for the first time. Disney.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And then, yes.
A reaction.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not amazed that he hadn't seen it this time? I mean,
It's just...
Rowan would say that it was her favourite.
I thought you were going to say you won the lottery. No, I just showed him a movie. Yeah.
Well, I know.
I won the lottery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I need Switch, which is my very first Switch. So.
Ooh. That just leaves Rowan. She's next for getting a Switch, if you ever decide to get one.
I'm actually considering it for Christmas.
Ooh. Well, that's, again, speculation, folks.
Well, I mean, kind of on the topic of game news, with Breath of the Wild 2 coming out and with a confirmed title, if there was ever a time for me to get a Switch,
Yep.
let me know.
Yes, indeed.
Possibly.
Well,
And an ironic twist for the Brits, it's called The Tears of the Kingdom.
oh boy. Well, I think that wraps up the podcast today, folks. So,
Yeah.
What a lovely note I ended on.
yep, we've still got one more podcast to do this year, which is pretty interesting. So, we'll see you then. So until next time, guys, bye-bye.
Patty, bye.
Nobody likes Hercules.
I didn't say that.